To the federal election now, and I'm joined by the ABC's election analyst, Antony Green. Welcome to Landline. At the end of the second full week of campaigning, the sheer amount of foot traffic through North Queensland suggests that those marginals will hold a key to the result.
Well, there's 10 seats under 5% in Queensland. There's a rich harvest of seats that can be won by the Liberal Party, the LNP in Queensland, and clearly Labor's concerned that it could lose some of those seats. There's a number of them in rural and regional Queensland: Dawson, Flynn, Herbert, Leichhardt. They could all fall at this election, and clearly both sides have got their eyes on them, and Queensland is the most important state at this election. It won't cost Labor government on its own, but it will certainly more than halve Labor's majority if they lose a lot of seats in Queensland.
As it turns out, Antony Green, you know a fair bit about this stretch of the Queensland coastline, having recently ridden a bike from Brisbane to Cairns. What sort of vibe did you pick up?
Well, while I was on the bike trip, I didn't actually talk politics very often to the locals, but I couldn't help but notice that in towns like Mackay, which I always thought of as being a sugar town, there's certainly a lot more influence of things like the mining industry. And you can't miss those coal trains and those railway lines that cross the roads, and the amount of sheer heavy industry which is there, which most people down south don't realise. That's had a big impact. The government's proposal for the major resources tax, which has been watered down, was very unpopular in these sorts of seats. Some of that anger will have subsided with the change in its structure, but still it could cost Labor seats in some of those northern seats where there's a significant mining industry presence.
Is the increasingly fractious interface between mining and agriculture going to have electoral implications?
Well, it's having an impact on towns and communities across Australia. That towns that were once essentially rural or are growing because of the population coming in to work in nearby mines, taking of resources away, financial resources, changing the nature of the economy. But most of the mining projects have got far more profitability than the agricultural products. And you also get in areas like we're seeing in the Darling Downs, where there's competition between agricultural pursuits and attempts to try and sort of mine things from under the ground like coal seam gas. So, I mean, clearly we're going to see more of this in the future.
Leaving aside Queensland, what are the other rural and regional seats worth watching closely?
There's Page on the north coast of New South Wales, which is a marginal Labor electorate, and is probably the most rural electorate that Labor holds. Eden Monero in the south of New South Wales, it's a perennial marginal seat, perennial bellwether seat. But it's a bit odd because it includes Queanbeyan, which is basically an extension of Canberra. So it's a rather mixed electorate. McEwen in central Victoria is a large electorate that sort of extends right from the edge of Melbourne through to central Victoria. It's got a large rural and regional component. Will be an interesting one to watch. But most, maybe Braddon and Bass in Tasmania, have some agricultural districts. But essentially most of the seats are safe for the coalition. There aren't many marginal seats in rural and regional Australia outside of Queensland. And then you have seats like O'Connor, which is where the National Party in Western Australia might be giving Wilson Tuckey a bit of a run for his money.
We hear and read a lot about the likely impact this time around of the Greens. What do you make of it? And are there any particular areas where that's likely to be more pronounced?
Well, the Greens tend to poll strongest in the centre of the cities, within a few kilometres of the GPO. That's their strong area. There are some areas on the north coast of New South Wales and parts of coastal Queensland where the Greens poll very well. But essentially they're an urban party. They'll get 4, 5, 6% in some country seats, but there aren't really enough close marginal seats in rural and regional Australia for Green preferences to matter that much. So I'm not sure the Green vote will be that important for deciding many electorates.
We profiled the tussle in Kalgoorlie a few weeks back on this show. Will Wilson Tuckey saddle up for another term?
Well, I think he would. I mean, he's held the seat for 3 decades and he's very well known. He's had the unknown tossed into it of having Kalgoorlie being added, but I think that Wilson Tuckey will poll well there. On state figures from the state election, the Nationals would win the seat. But they're running against Wilson Tuckey in a seat, which half of it he's represented for a very long time. He's very well known throughout the whole electorate. It's going to be very tough to defeat him, and it's going to require the Labor Party to finish third and deliver preferences as well. But I think we'll wait and see on that one, but I'd still be surprised if Wilson Tuckey was defeated.